The purpose of this project is to update the city's solid waste management master plan so that the city is best equipped to responsibly manage the solid waste generated within its borders. To do this, the project reviewed the city's existing waste management programs to identify what is being managed, how it is being managed, and how much of that waste is being buried in local landfill or being diverted and finding new life and materials. This project also explored a wide range of options for how the master plan could be updated and which of those options were right for Clarence-Rockland. The options were evaluated and specific updates to the master plan were recommended. Together, these updates are intended to meet the city's future waste management needs, promote sustainable waste management practices, increase waste diversion, reduce the amount of waste disposed, and maximize the lifespan of the landfill. While the city has a lot of authority in how it manages solid waste, it still needs to follow a framework held in place by provincial acts and regulations. There is one main provincial act that acts as the springboard between how waste diversion is managed before 2016 and after 2016. This is the Waste Free Ontario Act, which was passed June 2016. This act repealed the old Waste Diversion Act and enacted two other acts that support Ontario's current waste diversion system and its approach towards stewardship. The first act enacted is the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act. This act is important because it does the following. First, it directs the province to prepare a provincial solid waste management strategy, which is called the Strategy for a Waste-Free Ontario, Building the Circular Economy. It also allows the province to issue resource recovery and waste reduction policies statements. It replaces Waste Diversion Ontario with the Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority, or RPRA. It also sets up an individual producer responsibility, RPR framework, requiring producers to be accountable and financially responsible for their products and packaging once consumers dispose of them. We'll come back to these documents in a moment. The second act enacted was the Waste Diversion Transition Act. It outlined the legislative framework from shifting from existing stewardship programs for tires, electronics, household hazardous waste, and blue box recyclables to the new IPR framework described in the RRCEA. One of the first key documents to come out of the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act was a strategy for a waste-free Ontario, building a circular economy. It was released in February 2017. The strategy describes the province's vision and goals for achieving a circular economy and a strategy for doing so. The strategy identified 15 actions to achieve this vision. These actions include those related to recycling, designating new materials in the IPR system, and implementing an action plan to reduce the amount of food and organic wastes going to landfill. The strategy also sets provincial waste diversion targets, which include a 30% diversion rate by 2020, 50% by 2030, and 80% by 2050. Another significant document was the province's Food and Organic Waste Policy Statement, which was issued in April 2018. The policy statement is actually part of the province's Food and Organic Waste Framework. Part A of the framework is the action plan. The action plan identifies the province's proposed actions to reduce food waste, recover resources from food and organic waste, support resource recovery infrastructure, and promote beneficial use of food waste. The policy statement, or Part B of the framework, provides the policy directions that are needed to support the objectives of the action plan. There are two main implications for the city from the policy framework. Within the next 5 years, the population of Clarence-Rockland will increase such that The city will then fall under a policy called 4.2 II. According to this policy, the city will be required to provide collection of food and organic waste to single-family dwellings and urban settlements, and achieve a 50% waste reduction and resource recovery of food and organic waste. In part because of this, organic management forms a key part of the solid waste management strategy update. The last item coming out is the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act, Ontario Act 391/21 from June 2021. It was this regulation that triggered the transition of Ontario's Blue Box program to an individual producer responsibility IPR system. In this regulation, producers became obligated to develop and operate a new system for managing blue box recyclables. Producers and municipalities were allowed to transition to this new system over a 3-year period from 2023 to 2025. This was one of 5 such regulations. Similar regulations were also put in place for hazardous and special products, electrical and electronic equipment, batteries, and tires. In 2024, the city managed about 19,118 tons of municipal solid waste. This includes waste coming from households, apartment buildings, small commercial businesses, and waste dropped off at the landfill, either for disposal or for diversion. Of this, about 71%, more than 13,500 tons, was disposed in our landfill. The remaining 29%, or about 5,500 tons, was diverted through various waste diversion programs. The largest category of waste being disposed was garbage dropped off directly at the landfill. This category made up about 28% of the waste being managed by the city. Residential curbside garbage was the second largest category at about 24%. We'll talk more about this category shortly. The rest of the waste being disposed in Clarence-Rockland is garbage from large commercial businesses and construction and demolition. Together, they make up about 19% of the solid waste managed by the city. About 11% of the solid waste managed by the city was diverted from disposal through its yard waste program and from wood waste being chipped at the landfill. Blue box recycling diverted about 9% of the city's solid waste from the landfill. While we don't have an exact number for the amount of material diverted through the province's deposit refund program, based on provincial averages, we estimate that about 3% of Clarence-Rockland's solid waste is diverted through this program. Managing organic waste at home is also an important contributor to diverting solid waste from the landfill. We estimate that about 3% of the city's solid waste is diverted by homeowners using backyard composter and bike grass cycling. Other programs making a difference include scrap metal recycling, mattress recycling, and household hazardous waste recycling programs. It's important to note that there are other diversion programs taking place in Clarence-Rockland that is not being measured here, but is very important. And that is the diversion that is taking place through the multiple stewardship programs available to everyone for materials such as tires, electronics, used oil, oil, paint, and many other materials. If we want to keep more waste out of our landfill, we need to look at what we are putting in our garbage that could be going elsewhere. As part of this master plan update, we use waste composition data for other similar municipalities to pull apart a collective household garbage bag and see what's included. We found that more than half, or 52% of our residential garbage is organic waste. This includes food trimmings, food scraps, wastes or spoiled food, compostable papers such as paper towel, tissues, and paper packaging soiled with liquid food waste. Next in line, about 14% of our garbage includes recyclable materials that should be going into the blue box instead of the garbage. About 4% of the other materials that could be otherwise be diverted include textiles and some scrap metal. Together, this is more than 3,000 tons of waste per year that could be kept out of our landfill. Based on this review, we estimate that less than 1/3 of residential garbage, 31%, is material that should be going to our landfill. So this is where we are. Now let's look at how we move forward into the future. In considering how to update the solid waste management master plan, we began by reviewing a long list of options. 48 different options were explored, and they were grouped into the following categories: waste reduction and reuse, recycling, organics management, waste collecting and receiving, in other words, how we collect the waste or otherwise receive it from the waste generators, promotion and education, municipal policy, options focusing on the IC&I sector or the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector, other waste diversion opportunities, and waste disposal. The long list of options were then screened to see which one would be carried forward to the shortlist for a more detailed review. The options were screened against the following criteria: their diversion potential and whether they are considered to be critical for supporting diversion, the ability to generate cost efficiencies or their potential for generating cost savings, the overall cost to implement the option, and the innovation of the approach or its reliability. Once the screening was completed, the options found to be not effective or with limited suitability for Clarence-Rockland were removed and the shortlist remained. The shortlisted options were then reviewed in greater detail and recommendations for their adoption or not were made. In general, the typical recommendations included implementing the option in the short term, 1 to 5 years, implementing the option in the medium term, 5 to 10 years, implementing the option in the long term, 10 to 25 years, or not recommending the option at this time, but revisiting again during the next solid waste management plan update. In the next few slides, we will go through and review the options that are being recommended for the master plan update. The master plan will continue to promote and encourage the reduction and reuse of household waste. The recommendations related to waste reduction and waste reuse include reintroducing the sale of subsidized backyard composters and associated products, including compost aerators and digesters, including promotion and education of backyard composting within the city's waste diversion promotion and education strategy, working with the city's facility managers to develop and implement a protocol for helping event organizers at city facilities incorporate waste minimization into their event planning, promoting community reduce and reuse program through the city's solid waste communications. This could include, for example, a searchable directory of programs at drop-off locations, and continuing the city's curbside giveaway event and possibly expanding it. All of these options will be implemented in the short term or within the next 5 years. While the Blue Box recycling program will now be managed by product stewards, the city will still continue to foster the recycling of other materials. This includes the following. There are many take-back and drop-off programs for materials such as batteries, electronics, lighting, used oil and oil containers, paint, and others. The city will help promote the use of these retail and depot drop-off locations. We are eager to identify opportunities for expanding how many materials we can divert from disposal. While we will continue to be open to such opportunities, our focus in the short term will be completing the transition of the Blue Box recycling program to product stewards and getting an organics program in place. More on that later. But once those programs are well established, the city will be able to train its resources on pursuing new diversion opportunities and innovations. We are looking to place a focus on textile recycling. In the short term, the city will help promote the existing community textile reuse and recycling programs that are out there. Looking out into the medium term, the city would like to participate in a pilot program for the curbside collection of textiles, building on the lessons learned in other Ontario communities. We will also look to increase our battery recycling. Though they are small, batteries contain materials that can become toxic, and it is very important we make sure they stay out of our landfill. We will therefore include an option in our next solid waste collection tender for the curbside collection and recycling of household batteries. In the next slides, we will briefly discuss the transitional period of the Blue Box. The Blue Box transition regulations will have an impact on how small businesses receive their waste collection services. Currently, the city does not provide Blue Box recycling collection services to commercial customers. Instead, the recyclables are collected by Circular Materials Ontario, CMO, or by a private waste collection contractor. Typically, the city only provides garbage collection services to large businesses if they have their own private recycling collection. During the Blue Box transition period, the small businesses recycling service is provided by CMO. Small businesses continue to have their Blue Box collected by CMO. However, the Blue Box transition period ends December 31st, 2025. After January 1st, 2026, CMO will no longer be collecting these recyclables. This would affect curbside garbage collection as well, as it is Clarence-Rockland's policy to require businesses to have their own private recycling collection if the city is to provide garbage collection services. Businesses currently serviced by CMO will have two options. One, to make the shift to full private waste collection, including both garbage and recycling, or two, in order to continue to receive municipal garbage collection, obtain a private contractor for recycling collection. Diverting household organics from the garbage is perhaps the most significant thing the city can do to increase the amount of solid waste it diverts from the landfill. About 12% of the city's total solid waste stream is residential household organics that could be otherwise be diverted from landfill through composting programs, in particular, through municipal organics collection program. While some household organics could be managed by households themselves through backyard composting or using a food cycler type appliance, a curbside municipal organic collection program provides the best opportunity to capture most of that material. In the short term, the city will begin the planning required for the organics program. This will include developing a comprehensive implementation plan to detail the steps required to put the program in place. Many municipalities in Ontario and across Canada have implemented such programs, and we will build upon the lessons they have learned. The program rollout would take place in the medium term and be timed to align with the city's waste collection contracts. In the short term, the city will continue to explore other options for managing food waste. In addition to backyard composting mentioned earlier, this would also include a more focused pilot using a food cycler or similar appliance. The current pilot showed that there is an appetite for an appliance such as a food cycler. If the city undertakes another pilot, it would focus on how the appliance would integrate at a neighborhood level, and the amount of organics diverted from disposal would be quantified. The city would also look to implement a food waste reduction strategy. This would likely be designed to coincide with the rollout of the curbside organics program or shortly thereafter. How we collect waste is just as important as what we collect and where we send it. As we plan for the curbside organics collection program, we will also assess how we collect our garbage. In Ontario and elsewhere, municipalities typically reduce their garbage collection frequency from every week to every other week when they roll out a curbside organics collection program. There are a few very good reasons for this. Collecting garbage every other week encourages households to put their organic in the green cart instead of the garbage bag. This is very important for the environment as well for extending the lifespan of the landfill. This also helps to remind households to put their recyclables in their blue box instead of the garbage. With these materials no longer in the garbage, the amount of garbage they need to set out is greatly reduced, and in many cases by about half. Collecting this garbage every other week instead of weekly reduces the cost of garbage collection. It can also make the waste collection process more efficient. The review of how we collect garbage will include other considerations and their potential benefits, such as using carts for garbage instead of bags. This can help reduce garbage collection costs in the long term and reduce the risk of injuries to waste collection staff. Using radio frequency identification tags, or FIDs, on the garbage collection carts. These electronic tags could provide the city with data to make it more efficient. They could also be used to replace the current bag tags. Adopting a fleet that uses low emissions or zero emission vehicles. This would help minimize the greenhouse gas emissions generated from waste collection. Promotion and education is a critical component of any solid waste management program. In the short term, the city will prepare a comprehensive solid waste management promotion and education strategy. This will explore how the city can best use the tools it has available to make sure everyone has the information and the motivation they need to maximize their waste reduction and diversion. This goes beyond just the city's programs, as the strategy would also promote waste diversion options in the community that are being offered through stewardship programs and by community partners. Good communication is built on good data. Every few years, the city will complete a multi-seasonal waste audit. This will let the city know what programs are being successful and which ones need more help to divert their target material. Visual waste audits are a smaller, less formal type of waste audit and will be used as required to help better understand specific waste streams or issue areas. Municipal policies are important because they outline how specifically a municipality is going to operate a program or manage a material. Policies the city is proposing to update or introduce include the following policy items over the next 5 years. Putting an upper limit on how many bags or containers of waste can be set out for collection. Any additional bags or container above that limit, whether they have a tag or not, would have to be brought directly to the landfill site. Reducing the number of free garbage bags from 3 down to 2. To help assess the need for and effectiveness of adjustments to garbage bag tags and limits, the city will periodically collect data on the number of garbage containers households are sending out for collection. This information will be used when completing reviews on garbage tag fees and bag limits. In the medium term, the city would assess the feasibility of shifting to a full user pay model for garbage collection. This assessment would consider the results of garbage tag fee, bag limit reviews completed before them. The city's solid waste bylaw would be updated to align with current waste management programming. The update would also ensure bylaw officers have the authority they need to enforce the bylaw. The city would also begin the planning required to transition the city's garbage program to a clear bag program. The implementation of the clear bag program may align with rollout of the curbside organics program. However, if feasible, it may be implemented earlier. The city would develop a strategy to eliminate or reduce single-use plastics. This would build on federal regulations and the approaches that have been implemented in numerous other jurisdictions, such as Toronto and Ottawa. Lastly, the city will review and update the key performance indicators used for evaluating a city's solid waste management program. Traditionally, waste diversion rates have been the go-to metric for determining if a municipality's waste management system is doing well or not. However, this is not as useful an indicator as it has been. For example, some materials that would have been included in calculating the city's waste diversion rates are no longer managed by the city, and therefore that tonnage is no longer counted. Also, the materials to make products have changed over time, have become lighter, or certain products, such as newspapers, are no longer consumed and discarded in the volumes they once were. These factors and more reduce the total weight of materials diverted compared to materials disposed. The city will identify, review, and adopt indicators that provide a better representation of the city's waste management goal. As noted previously, a considerable amount of garbage going to the city's landfill is commercial waste. To maximize the useful lifespan of the landfill, the city will continue to reduce the garbage collection services it offers to the commercial sector, therefore preserving landfill space for future residential garbage. In the medium term, the city will develop a strategy for managing and recycling construction and demolition waste. The city will seek to consult with businesses in the construction and demolition sector for their inputs into the strategy. The city will continue to remain open to partnering with other municipalities for delivering programs as opportunities present themselves. The last category of options to be considered is disposal. Currently, the city has about 40 years of disposal capacity remaining. As such, there is no urgent need to seek new disposal capacity. That said, and looking toward to the future, the city understands that at that time it would likely be much easier to expand its existing landfill than to secure a new site. Additionally, the landfill site is situated in a relatively central location within the municipality. Therefore, it is expected that a future expansion will be preferable for future generations in Clarence-Rockland rather than finding a new landfill site. It is recommended that the city review options for purchasing properties adjacent to the landfill to help protect the future disposal capacity. Thank you for your time and attention to this video. Your interest is greatly appreciated. The next step in the development of the strategy are the following. Feedback from the public will be collected during the month of July. After consultation period, we will review the feedback and update the recommendations accordingly. The strategy will then be finalized to include an implementation schedule and estimated costing. The strategy will then be presented to Council for review and approval. Thank you.